The next presentation is going to be about Just Culture, and I would like to invite Roland Baumann, Head of Planning and Development AIM at SkyGuide, but also Chairman of the Council AIM Working Group, and he's going to provide this presentation on behalf of Council.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, many thanks for having the opportunity to present you something which has not been presented so far at final conferences. It was on the wish of IFIMA to come up and present you some background of Just Culture discussions going on. The presentation which I'm going to provide you is not on behalf of the CANSO AIM Working Group, it's on behalf of CANSO Europe especially, which is doing a lot of work in the Just Culture domain. And you will see that it will not just cover issues related to Europe, it will cover definitely the interaction also with ICAO. I'm quite sure that Roberta is also very curious to see the content of what is going to be presented. So before I start my presentation, I would also like to say something which is very important for the AIS community, because I had long discussions with the ATM, especially with the ATC side. AIS and AIM has already established a QMS in our environment long before ATM even considered this. And interesting enough, if you look into a QMS, it already covers a lot of elements of the Just Culture. I'm not saying all the elements, but you have elements of the Just Culture in there. So some of the issues which you're going to hear are not going to be completely new to you, but I think what is going to be new is the legal dimension of the whole issue. And it's becoming actually much more important when we look at the digital environment. So the persons I have to credit before I start the presentation is Catherine Kroppel from CANSO. She is also from SkyGuide. She is in the working group, and also Eduardo Garcia from CANSO. They are both in the Just Culture working group, and Fernando, you will also see during my presentation, has had the opportunity to meet them in this work. Okay, so I will now start with the presentation of Just Culture. As I said, I'm not the specialist on this, but I will try to run you through and try to link it as much as I can with our AIM environment. My presentation will cover the following aspects. We will run through definition and overview, the legal framework, the organizations involved. This especially concerns now Europe, but we will see that it can be broader. The actors, where Just Culture fits, the regulation and the European Commission initiatives. So it's going to be a lot focused on Europe, but you can transpose it to any other region of the world. The reporting involved, the ATM partners involved, and the ATM here is to be understood in the broadest context that AIS-AIM is also part of ATM, external and internal Just Culture. I will start with definitions and overview. I pitifully can't get past this part, so I will put on screen what is the definitions we are using in the European environment, in the definitions which are being done in the work currently, and probably there will be discussions with CANSO also and with ICAO on this issue. So on the screen you can see that Just Culture means a culture in which frontline operations, and AIS and AIM as one of those, or other persons, are not punished for actions, omissions, or decisions taken by them that are commensurate with experience and training, but in which gross negligence, of course, and willful violations of destructive acts are not tolerated. I'll just leave it so that you can read through it shortly, because it is very important that you take definition with you during the presentation. Okay, Just Culture plays, of course, a very vital role in a successful safety culture by encouraging the employees to report safety incidents and hazardous conditions. Again, many people involved in implementing the quality management system have implemented these kind of things already in an AIS-AIM environment. Not everywhere, but now it's becoming more formalized. So this information enables the proactive identification of safety-related problems and allows for the identification of safety trends. The idea is by enabling this culture, trends should be recognized. A critical part of the just culture is also the responsibility to be consistently intolerant of willfully reckless behavior. So it's basically trying to filter out the behavior which is not accepted, and where behavior is not accepted, appropriate steps are taken. Adopting a clearly defined just culture program and policies will benefit each member safety management strategy. So the idea is to have clear rules set up here, so everybody understands the framework in which this just culture is established. If you look at the organizations, the legal frameworks, definitely we have ICAO here. I'm just mentioning here the annexes 13 and 19. In our discussions which we had with Roberta, she already highlighted that this discussion is ongoing, so I'm just mentioning them here, that this is one of the areas at the global framework, in the global framework, if I put it, where we will see this just culture issue being dealt with. And in Europe, we have of course the European framework, which is coming up, driven mainly through the political bodies in Europe, and this is they result in a regulation which has been developed. So this is a regulation which you will be able to download if you take the number of the regulation 376 2014. This is a regulation you will find in the public domain, so it's not a regulation which is hidden away secretly, and you can download it, which is dealing with this just culture based on the European framework. I want to touch on the organizations currently dealing with it. Of course, IFAIMA is involved in this discussion, but not only IFAIMA. So there's a lot of other organizations in the European framework dealing with it. You see CANSO, you see IATA, you see a lot of other airline and other related business organizations which are dealing with these issues in the European context. Sorry, I was a little bit too fast, so I have to wait here for the presentation. So if you see all the actors, there is a wide community of actors engaged in the aviation side with this just culture. So the slide animation, as I said, was not set up by me, but you see it's very animated, and you see all the numbers of actors, examples of actors interacting on just culture issue in Europe. So we basically have all the involved parties which are conducting the flight mission with all the services involved, which in some way or other are involved to such just culture issues. So it's cross aviation. It's not something which is just related to ATM. So we're looking at something which is in the broader context cross aviation. Where does just culture fit in? I think this is very important to understand. Just culture is not something of its own. Just culture builds and supports actually safety management systems established. You see that different pillars build onto just culture. We have the safety policies and objectives, we have safety risk, we have safety assurance, and we have safety promotion. And just culture forms one of those bases. And it only stands a chance if you get top-level commitment in any company which wants to introduce just culture. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. So the context here of just culture is that we are making sure that in the European framework now it is somehow becoming institutionalized. This might be more familiar to you where just culture fits in. When you look at the just culture, we have the safety culture, which is not completely new, as we have always been involved in some ways with the QMS here. And we have also had a kind of a reporting culture and a learning culture, which is also part of the QMS in there. But where it becomes a little bit more complex is now when we look at the reporter protection. And what do we mean with reporter? The reporter is the one in the Just Culture reporting anything contributing to this safety. And there we are dealing with two issues. One of, as I just mentioned, of this Just Culture is then protecting the data of those persons involved. Now, you will see at the end of my presentation that I will come back, but I think this slide very clearly shows that we are connecting to data, and if we look at the digital environment where we have metadata, then we can look at it as a kind of a legal reporting, although it's mainly for traceability, it will be a kind of legal reporting which is comparable to the reporting of an air traffic controller during the whole process of data, of the data chain, and there will be a lot of data in there which will allow basically to trace back to people, so data protection has to be looked at very carefully in this new environment. The European regulations are foreseeing to improve the system by collecting data. I think this is very important, so we have bodies like EASA and the European Commission which are trying to achieve the goal to collect data. When we say collect data, it's to report data. Collecting, storing and protecting this data, exchanging this data, disseminating and analyzing this data with the clear goal that safety related to safety information in civil aviation. The quality, data quality issues, I think there is nobody who will object, but where personal data is contained and we have linkage with people, we have to be very careful to put appropriate mechanisms in place. So I think it is a very big issue for our business to consider, and I'm very happy that IFIMA has actually put the Just Culture onto the agenda, because I think this discussion is going to be very important. We have also heard when ICAO deals with the issue that we are able to come in with qualified arguments when discussing this. Thank you very much.